We have some massive news to cover today, and frankly, it's about as bad as it gets. If you've been following the updates on Roblox lately, you know they've been pushing everyone to verify their age, and to do that, they use a third-party identity service called Persona. Well, if you actually went through with that process or if you've used Persona on any other platform, you need to stop what you're doing and listen. The gist of the situation is a total nightmare. We were told our private documents were being handled securely, but it turns out that by handing over your ID and your face scan, you've essentially walked straight into a massive privacy trap. Your most sensitive data is now out there in a way that is almost impossible to undo. So if you already did the verification, you're basically fucked. The damage is done. Persona is basically just a middleman for the government. They're taking all that private info you gave them and handing it right over to federal agencies. We're talking about your ID, your face, and your location being fed directly into systems that organizations like ICE have access to. Think about how messed up that is. You're just trying to play Roblox or verify your age, and now you and your family are potentially in a government database you never signed up for. This is easily one of the shadiest things to ever happen in the history of the game. Anyways, before we talk about everything, make sure you drop a like, sub to the channel, and share this with everyone you know before they make the same mistake. Let's get straight into how this all actually got leaked. Everything changed when a group that goes by the name The Watchers dropped a massive bomb on the internet. They put out this massive report that pulls the curtain back on a secret operation between OpenAI and the feds. It turns out that since November of 2023 they've been using Persona as a front to run a massive identity tracking system behind our backs. We are talking about years of data being funneled into a database that nobody even knew existed until right now. The craziest part about this whole thing isn't even the data though. It's the fact that before these guys even get into the evidence, they start the entire report with a literal death disclaimer. They straight up wrote out that they have zero plans to hurt themselves and they aren't in any way. They basically told the world that if they suddenly turn up dead or go missing after posting this, it was not an accident. Think about how heavy that is for a second. These people are so terrified of what they found and who they're exposing that they're basically preparing for the government to come after them just for hitting the publish button. When the people leaking the info are that scared for their lives, you know the situation is way deeper than just some Roblox age check. The scariest part about this whole thing isn't even the leak itself, it's the fact that these people had to set up a dead man switch just to stay alive. They basically made it known that if they disappear or suicide mysteriously, a second wave of even more sensitive data is programmed to drop automatically. It's a total insurance policy against these massive corporations. They're doing this because we've reached a point where billion-dollar companies like OpenAI are basically untouchable. We have seen what happens to whistleblowers who try to play hero. They end up in the news under some unusual circumstances that nobody can ever explain. It's a disgusting reality, but these companies and the people running them have become so powerful that they think they can just hit a delete button on human lives to protect their secrets. These guys obtained every single bit of this evidence through legal channels, but they still know that doesn't make them safe. When you're exposing a partnership between the feds and these big companies, being right isn't a shield. They are literally gambling their lives on the idea that the truth is already too big to be buried, even if they aren't around to see it go viral. Persona is way bigger than most people realize because they aren't just tied to Roblox. They have basically infiltrated every corner of the internet, including Discord, OpenAI, and even VR chat. This means we are looking at the private data of tens of millions of people being funneled into one place. It's not just some random ID check because the leak actually shows that anyone who used Persona was basically flagged. The report claims that if you fell for the verification prompt, you were essentially put on a digital government watch list. They are taking your face scans and your government documents and handing them over to be picked apart by federal agencies. They're digging through your personal history and building a massive digital profile on you that's linked straight to law enforcement. Most users thought they were just getting access to voice chat or a badge, but they were actually being tracked and monitored by a system that was designed to keep tabs on them forever. This whole thing was sold as a way to keep games safe, but it was really just a massive data grab that gave the feds a direct line into your private life. When you look at what they're actually taking, it's not just a basic ID check, it is a full-scale digital harvest. They are grabbing everything, from your government-issued ID and every IP address you've ever used, to your full legal name, your phone numbers, and your emails. They even track your exact GPS location and the specific fingerprint of your phone or computer. But the part that is truly wild is that they're analyzing your selfie backgrounds too. This means they aren't just looking at your face, they are mapping out your house, your room, and your surroundings to figure out exactly where you are and what your life looks like. It gives them a way to build a complete profile of your daily environment without you ever consenting to it. They're basically turning a simple verification photo into a high-tech surveillance tool that tracks your whereabouts in real time. The idea that our privacy was actually being protected was a total scam from the start. They looked everyone in the eyes and promised that once the verification was done, they would just hit the delete button on our personal info. but that was just a flat-out lie used to shut people up. What was really happening behind the scenes is that the leadership at Roblox was feeding the private lives of tens of millions of players into this system without a second thought. They basically hijacked the game, making it impossible to even use basic features unless you agreed to hand over your entire identity. It is honestly sickening when you look at how the people in charge handled this. While this massive database of our faces and our personal history was being built for a government watch list, David Baszucki was busy doing PR, and he actually had the nerve to say out loud that the problem on his platform was an opportunity, which is one of the most twisted things I've ever heard a CEO say. They used the excuse of keeping people safe to build a literal surveillance net, and they did it while acting like it was just another way to grow their business. If you want to see how deep this goes, you don't even have to look for some hidden code, because Persona basically admits to their government ties right on their own website. They openly state that their operations are handled by the GSA, which is the General Services Administration, the same agency that manages the logistics and supplies for the entire federal government. They even go as far as saying their system is only meant to be used by government authorities, which should tell you exactly who is actually in control of the information you're handing over. But it gets even darker when you dig into their technical setup, because their government-facing servers were found to be a perfect match for a specific surveillance tool called ISIS. This is a specialized AI engine that cost over $4 million to develop, and its only purpose is to act as a massive dragnet for human behavior. It spends every second of every day scanning through the dark web and every major social media platform to build an inescapable digital footprint for every single user. This isn't just about basic info like your name or where you live. They are actually using AI to analyze your emotional state and how you react to things online to determine what kind of risk you might pose to society. They are pulling from over 300 different apps and websites to compile a staggering 28 billion individual pieces of data on the public. Every comment you've ever left, every person you've messaged, and even the tone of your voice in a recording is being indexed and fed into a profile that the government can pull up at the touch of a button. They have basically turned the entire internet into a giant observation room where your personality is being turned into a score that never goes away. The most disturbing part of this entire situation is how they're using our data to basically play judge and jury behind our backs. They built a system designed to look at your history and decide if you're a threat, effectively labeling people as potentially dangerous before they've even done anything wrong. Every person who fell for that Roblox verification is now trapped in a federal database, and they're being analyzed by a system that was built to never let them go. The whole push for online safety laws, like what we've seen over in the UK, was really just a massive front to get people to hand over their IDs. They used the idea of protecting children as a weapon to make sure nobody would argue with them while they vacuumed up all this personal info. It was a giant psychological trick to get millions of users to willingly walk into a surveillance net. They took a genuine concern for safety and twisted it into a way to feed the government's hunger for data. And the worst part is that most people didn't even realize they were signing away their privacy forever. It makes perfect sense why someone like the co-founder of Palantir would be throwing money at this. When you have a guy who built his entire career on mass surveillance and state intelligence backing Persona, you know the goal isn't user safety. And they aren't just checking your birthday, they're actually running a secret facial recognition scan every time you take a selfie. They are comparing your face to databases of criminals and suspects in real time, which proves that the promise of them deleting your data was a dumb lie. The system is designed to act as a digital border agent. It filters every user through over a dozen different threat levels, looking for anything related to national security or international crimes. Once the AI decides who you are, it funnels that profile into a web of covert government operations. These programs have names that sound like they belong in a spy novel, things like Project Shadow, Legion, and Chameleon. They've essentially turned a gaming verification into a recruitment and tracking tool for intelligence agencies, and they've managed to do it by making us think we were just verifying an account. The level of digging this software does is actually insane because it runs nearly 300 separate background audits on a single person. It isn't just glancing at an ID card, it is hunting through every public and federal record to see if you have any political connections or dangerous affiliations. Essentially, they are turning human beings into a numerical threat level. By mapping out your physical face and pinning it to your exact GPS coordinates, they've handed the state a permanent map to find anyone they want at the push of a button. Then you have the absolute lie about how long they keep this stuff. They tried to act like it was a temporary security measure, but the truth is they are archiving everything for over 1,000 days. That is 3 full years where your most private details are sitting in a shared vault accessible to the feds and whatever other foreign agencies they've partnered with. Your identity is basically on a 3-year lease to the government, and once you've submitted that photo, the door is locked. There is no delete button for us, and there is no way to claw that privacy back once they've added you to their long-term database. The whole protecting the kids angle was nothing but a calculated distraction to get a trusting public to lower their guard. They used that narrative as a psychological weapon, knowing that most people wouldn't question his system if it was wrapped in the flag of child safety. While some saw through the charade immediately, the reality of the situation exposes a level of government coldness that most people can't even wrap their heads around. At the center of it all is David Baszucki, whose lack of a moral compass has never been more obvious. He didn't just sign off on this, he was actually enthusiastic about launching a platform that he knew would strip away the privacy of his own users. He understood exactly what the fallout would be, and he chose to move forward anyway, making him a primary partner in this entire operation. There is no way to spin his involvement as anything other than a conscious choice to trade the security of millions for a seat at the table with federal surveillance agencies. He isn't a bystander, he is a key architect in the betrayal of his own community. The reach of this system is actually insane because it gives government agents a direct look at your bank accounts and your entire payment history, even checking if you own any crypto. It's a level of financial stalking that people didn't sign up for when they just wanted to play a game. On top of the government having it, you have to worry about the fact that Roblox and Discord are notorious for getting hacked. Storing all this sensitive data in one place is basically a ticking time bomb. If or when this database leaks, your entire identity and your family's private info become public property. You're looking at a massive safety risk for your household that can't be undone. The worst part is how this affects parents who aren't even on the platform. Kids are desperate for features like voice chat, so they're grabbing their parents' driver's licenses or passports to bypass the system. Without knowing it, these kids are handing their parents' private lives over to federal agencies. Those parents are being flagged and tracked by a surveillance system they never even interacted with, all because a gaming company made it too easy for a child to trade their family's privacy for a verify tag. If you genuinely believe these massive corporations give a single damn about your safety, you are huffing some serious industrial-grade copium. Roblox and Discord have proven, time and time again, that they are about as reliable as a screen door on a submarine when it comes to protecting your data. Their track record is a literal dumpster fire. The message here is simple: stop handing your private documents to Roblox and Discord, or just anyone that uses Persona AI. Do not comply, do not give them shit, because what's actually happening behind the scenes is way more dystopian than some age check. They're essentially building a digital report card, a social credit system, where the government can rank you based on every move you make online. And guess who's bankrolling this absolute nightmare? It's Peter Thiel. This is a guy who was rubbing shoulders with Jeffrey Epstein and has a history of personal scandals that would make your skin crawl. We're talking about a man who couldn't even give a straight yes when asked if he thought humanity should actually continue to exist. That is the guy who wants your biometrics and your identity sitting in a database. If you give in to these verification prompts, you're basically handing the keys of your life to a Bond villain and hoping for the best. It's total insanity.
You would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes?
I don't know. I would,
This is a long hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit in this.
This is bottom of the barrel depravity we're talking about. There is no other way to frame it. You aren't just a player to them, you're a suspect being audited by a machine. They are literally grading you based on the threat they think you pose to the state. We're talking about a total surveillance dragnet that's watching every single thing you touch, every post you upload, every question you feed into an AI, your private calls, and every single message you send in a secret Discord DM. They've stripped away every layer of anonymity. All of that data is being stitched directly to your legal name, your IP, your emails, and your actual physical face. Any talk of user privacy is a complete joke, and anyone who believes it is living in a total fantasy. They lie to your face to get you to lower your guard, and now they have a permanent, unchangeable file on exactly who you are and how you think. It's a level of digital stalking that would have sounded like a schizo conspiracy a few years ago, but now it's just the standard operating procedure for a company that wants to own your entire existence. It's actually hilarious that they think we're this brain dead. Discord supposedly cut ties with Persona recently, and they're out here pinky promising that every scrap of user data has been scrubbed from the face of the earth. That is complete and utter garbage. The idea that a massive corporation would just hit delete on a goldmine of biometric info is the biggest fairy tale I've ever heard. Data is the most valuable resource on the planet. They aren't just tossing it in the trash because a partnership ended. They're hoarding it so they can sell it or use it for future profiling whenever the state decides it needs a new list of threats to track. They want to act like they're doing us a favor by distancing themselves, but the damage is already done. Your identity is already in the machine. No corporate press release is going to change the fact that they've built a permanent roadmap for the government to stalk you whenever they feel like it. It's a total scam designed to quiet the backlash while they keep the prizes they already stole. This is the kind of shit that should be causing an absolute meltdown in the Roblox community. Even if people suspected it, the sheer scale of this mess is too big to just brush under the rug. We're talking about fighting megacorporations with billions in the bank who have zero problem silencing anyone who tries to whistleblow on their shady practices. To give you an idea of how deep this rabbit hole actually goes, Roblox is just the tip of the iceberg. Persona is plugged into a massive web of platforms you probably use every day. We're talking about LinkedIn, DoorDash, Etsy, Coursera, and even VR chat. They've got their hands in the crypto space with Bitcoin and Swan, and they're embedded in financial tools like Brex, Mercury, and Wealthsimple. But wait, it gets even more insane, they are also powering the verification for OpenAI, Square, Instacart, Nextdoor, and Twilio. They're even working with Lime Scooters and Okta. We aren't just talking about a few people who play games. We're talking about hundreds of millions of profiles being fed into a centralized machine. Every time you verify your identity for a side hustle, a delivery app, or even an AI tool, you're likely adding another page to a federal dossier that the government can flip through whenever they want. It's an assembly line for mass surveillance, and most people are walking right onto the belt without a second thought. Discord only scrapped that partnership because the public backlash got too loud to ignore, but don't be fooled, they aren't actually shutting down these tracking operations. They have every intention of continuing, they're just going to be much more calculated about burying the evidence next time around. To wrap this up, this is easily one of the most predatory and twisted scandals Roblox has ever been involved in, which is a massive statement when you consider their track record. Peter Thiel, who is arguably one of the most controversial and dangerous figures in tech today, is the one bankrolling Persona. They're using the excuse of AI age estimation to scan faces and harvest personal data, which is then being funneled directly to US government agencies and ICE to build permanent profiles on every single person involved. Your data is not safe, and it never will be. Do not comply with this, and never trust the government when they're involved in shady surveillance like this. If you've made it this far into the video, I really appreciate you sticking around until the end. Also, definitely leave a comment with your thoughts on this whole situation down below, because I'm curious to see what you guys think about all of this. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.